Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual town hall meeting. I'm Sybil Madison, your Deputy Mayor for Education and Human Services, and it's my pleasure to moderate tonight's discussion and help get questions answered for members of our CPS community. I want to thank our panelists, the Honorable Mayor Lori E. Lightfoot, our CPS CEO Dr. Janice Jackson, and our Board of Education President Miguel de Valle. We will begin tonight by hearing briefly from each of our panelists, and then we'll transition into a conversation. I'm sure many, if not all of you, have heard by now that Dr. Jackson will be departing CPS at the end of this school year. We are sad to see her go. We know that her imprint on this district will be here for years and years and decades to come. But we're really grateful to have her here tonight and for the next couple of months as we plan for a successful school year and a successful summer. To talk more about that plan and about the impact that Dr. Jackson's leadership has had on the district, I'm pleased to introduce tonight's first speaker, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Thank you, Sybil. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. One of the things that I think we have all come to recognize is that more engagement with the CPS stakeholders and communities, and particularly our parents, is absolutely essential. You are why we are here. Your children, you entrust them to CPS to learn, to grow, and be nurtured in a safe environment. And we want and will seek other opportunities to be very much engaged with you. As Sybil indicated, joining me tonight is, of course, our CPS CEO, Dr. Janice Jackson, and Board of Education President Miguel de Valle. And we look forward to hearing from you and answering your questions over the course of this hour. Obviously, Dr. Jackson's decision is momentous. Momentous for her and her family, but obviously also momentous for CPS in our city. But I hope the prevailing sentiment, and I know that this has evoked a lot of emotions, is one of gratitude. Really gratitude for Dr. Jackson, and not just in her tenure as CEO, which has really been tremendous, but really for 22 years of service, starting as a teacher and then a principal, and then moving up in the administration to her dream job of being CEO. As Sybil said, Dr. Jackson's legacy will be long-lasting because she has led with integrity, she's led with a heart for our children, and really led by example to everyone who she's touched. And so while it's definitely bittersweet, we wish her well. We wish her much success in her transition. But I believe that this also provides this district and all of us who care about public education in Chicago as a real opportunity. We've got a lot of challenges that we got to face as a district moving forward. Certainly the last year has been tremendously difficult and challenging on our children, on our families, and on our system as we address and recover from the effects of the pandemic. So this gives us an opportunity to really dig down deep on things like learning loss, school achievement, and also making sure that we are doing a better job of communicating with the school community, all of which we're committed to do. But let me give a few highlights of Dr. Jackson's tenure. I get to brag on her, hard for her to do, but I think these achievements bear repeating, and we should all keep in mind as we bid her our farewell. Under Dr. Jackson's leadership, we've seen our students reach ever-increasing heights of promise and success, new highs in graduation rates, college enrollment, and scholarships. She formed a partnership with the city colleges that continues to yield dividends, established really a signature program in Chicago Connected, which gives our families free access to Wi-Fi and broadband, not only to help our students learn, but really have the entire family and household be connected. It's a program that really has won national renown Other cities are calling and asking us how we did it. That's a key part of Dr. Jackson's legacy, as well as universal pre-K. We know that we have to think about our children really from birth to the time that they enter CPS and then thereafter. Universal pre-K, a critical part of making sure that we are reaching our youngest children and using education as a great equalizer, which we can't do if we're not reaching them at the early possible stage and not allowing zip code to determine their destiny. These things happen on Dr. Jackson's watch because of her commitment to our children. And she's blazed a trail of successes and record-setting achievements over the course of her 3 years. These didn't happen by chance. These and other achievements happen because of diligence, sacrifice, and intentionality around making our CPS students and our school system one of the best in the country. And we've got to give our hats off and commend Dr. Jackson and her leadership team for the successes that we've had. And she has left a foundation on which the new CEO and that leadership team are going to build, but be the beneficiaries of the hard work that Dr. Jackson and her team have done. Now, moving forward, we've got to, as I said, tackle some of the tougher challenges, the achievement gap and learning loss, thinking about more comprehensive ways in which we can support CPS families, and make public education truly the great equalizer that it must be, and that I know it is from my own life's experience. I'm sitting here today as a product of public schools and what that means to us and the possibilities. As mayor and as a mother, I'm determined to make sure that I continue to do everything in our power to make sure that our children are able to see and feel and touch opportunity all around them so that they can realize their God-given potential. So at this point, I will turn it over to President Valle to also say a few words about the path forward. Mr. President?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure and certainly an honor to be here with Dr. Jackson. Lots of people are talking about her announcement. And there are folks out there who probably wonder whether she'll reconsider, but it's a final decision, and we appreciate that and respect that. And we certainly are appreciative for the contributions that she's made at CPS over the decades. We're talking decades. She started out as a student, a graduate, then a teacher, a principal, then a network administrator, then the chief education officer, and then moved to the top position. And I think it's important, and certainly, Mayor, you've said it very well, but I think it's important to highlight a few things that have happened that have Dr. Jackson's stamp on. And they're permanent structural changes that she has put into place that will be around long after we're all gone. And when history judges her contribution, they'll look back to these days and say that's when CPS took a turn for the better in many respects. And by that, I mean the establishment, the development of the Skyline curriculum, and Dr. Jackson will be talking more about that. The issue and the focus on equity. I've been involved with CPS for many decades. Janice, longer than you have, because I'm a lot older. But it wasn't until I came on board as president and learned about Janice's mission to establish equity. Equity meaning that every child in every neighborhood, in every school in the city of Chicago will have equal opportunity to obtain a quality education, regardless of their economic status, regardless of what block they live on, and then making sure that every decision that gets made within CPS is done through an equity lens. And this is monumental. And people, I think, are still not at the point where they could fully appreciate that. But as the years go by, we will see that structural change of focusing on equity is a sea change that will have tremendous impact on the lives of students today and, of course, all our future students. So I thank her for that. But preceding the focus on equity, Dr. Jackson was able to establish a 5-year mission, a 5-year vision for CPS, establishing clear goals and direction for all our staff. We've talked a lot about the team that she has built, but that team has come together around this commonality, this 5-year vision that has provided direction for all components within CPS and has created this kind of synergy that allows us to be able to make progress as quickly as possible. And so I thank her for that. I thank her for that leadership. And on behalf of the board, I can tell you that every single board member has nothing but respect and admiration for Dr. Jackson. And yes, she will be replaced with a new leader, but that new leader will have big shoes to fill. But I'm confident that we will find someone, and that person is going to walk into a Chicago public school system today that is the strongest it's ever been as a result of Dr. Jackson's contribution.
Hear, hear.
That's right.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
So
Wow. That was
It's your
a lot.
turn now.
I know. And now I have a lump in my throat, but I will keep going. First, thank you, President Del Valle and Mayor Lightfoot, for those wonderful remarks, as well as Sybil, our very own Oprah, moderating us through this. I've said this before, but I really think it's worth repeating that this has been the privilege of a lifetime. So it's been an honor to work with all of you. I'm looking forward to the next act. But those of you who know me know I always stay focused on the work, and I am not taking my foot off the gas. And we got about 2 more months to do a lot of really important work. And I know that the parents who joined us tonight want to hear more about that. So I'm going to jump right into that. First, we know that we are coming off of a very tough year with COVID-19 and school closures related to that. And for the past year, we've spent majority of our time working to get students back in school and making sure that every student and every family that wanted an in-person option had access to that. And I'm happy. I don't think anyone's more happy than I am, besides the parents at home who now get a little more freedom, that we've been able to accomplish that. But very quickly, my team has turned our attention to getting students back to school daily in the fall, and it starts with summer programming. And so we released school budgets last month, and we provided principals with additional funding so that they can start creating summer programs eventually in the fall that will transition into after-school programming as well. But really the focus is on re-engagement and enrichment so that our students, you know, seamlessly integrate back into a regular school day. So a couple of highlights, because I know from some of the questions that were submitted earlier, parents are really anxious to hear more about summer programming opportunities. So the first thing that we are focused on is to really kick off students' educational journey for our youngest students. And so we're going to have a preview to preschool for our preschoolers who are going to be enrolling in the fall. That name even sounds cute, and the kids are even cuter.
It's a great name.
It's a good day, so I can't take credit for it, but I do like it. And then also our kickoff to kindergarten program. And essentially this builds on what we know about major transitions, which is that when we get students involved earlier, allow them to, you know, come into the building, get to know teachers, assimilation is easier once regular school starts. We'll be also doing that at the high school level for key transitions such as entry into 9th grade. But we also extended that to 10th grade because our 9th graders this year, some of them have never stepped foot in their high school. And so we thought that it was critically important that beginning this summer, they have that opportunity. We're also going to continue our extended school year program for our students with disabilities, as well as double our efforts for English language learners students this summer. So parents who want to learn more about those programs, your school principals and the leads at each individual individual school. We'll be sharing more information about that in the coming weeks. In addition to that, at the high school level, we'll be offering credit recovery for any students that failed a course during the school year. And then we pushed out additional we pushed out additional out-of-school time funds so that people can do enrichment activities, create programs to get kids back in school so that they're actively engaged and involved. And so we're talking about programming for over 90,000 students. And if we have more demand, I know we'll have the runway to even offer even more. So I'm really excited about that. In addition to these programs, as President Del Valle mentioned, our groundbreaking curriculum equity initiative, which is also referred to as Skyline, will be launched this summer. Now, many of our teachers got a sneak peek of this because we were able to release it in beta form this current school year, and the response has been overwhelming. I had a chance to meet with students yesterday who, on our Student Advisory Council, and they actually had an opportunity to come in and they were taught lessons in Skyline. And I have to add this because they really blew me away with their feedback. I had one student, she's a junior at Lindblom, and she said to me, the first thing I looked at was the science curriculum, because I knew that if the science curriculum was rigorous, that CPS got it right. So she gave us a thumbs up. And then another student, Jorge, I can't remember which school he attends, but he said to me he was looking to make sure that the curriculum was culturally relevant, and he was happy to see that representation. So those little nuggets, as well as what we've heard from teachers, makes me feel good about what we're going to be releasing. And I know our teachers will be grateful for the additional support. So again, the focus right now is on getting our students back in the buildings as soon as possible. There will be several offerings for summer programming, and I look forward to talking more about that later in today's discussion. The last update that I wanted to provide is that there is some exciting news on the horizon with regard to vaccines for young people. We already are able to administer vaccines for people who are 16 and over, and this weekend the CDPH is going to be taking the vaccine bus out to Fanger High School on the far south side. So we've been promoting that. If you are 16 and a CPS student or a Chicago resident, just please show up. We will be offering those vaccines. And we know that Pfizer very soon will be allowing children 12 years old and up to take it. And so we will have a comprehensive program in partnership with CDPH to make sure that our students are getting vaccinated. Again, I just want to say thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, again, for selecting me to do this. I'm going to say that until I walk out the door. You didn't have to do it. I remember our first conversation, but I'm so glad that you did, and I hope you feel the same way. It's been an honor to serve.
Well, and let me just add, I remember our first conversation very well. And truly, your enthusiasm, your passion really came through. We've been through a lot in the last 2 years, and I think that has really, forged a bond that will last a lifetime. Yeah. So I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Your turn, Sybil.
Yes, my turn. And I will say thank you as well. It has been wonderful. I know we're going to be working together these next 2 months, but it's been wonderful working with you, Janice.
Thank you.
And having you as part of the cabinet and the collaboration with the other heads of the departments and sister agencies that we work so closely with. So, you know I'm going to miss you.
I know. Please don't cry again.
I'm not tonight. Okay. We're going to get into some of the questions that have been submitted, and we know that they were submitted in advance. Thank you very much. We're going to have a conversation. A couple of the topics that are high on the list are more information about the transition, so we'll get into that. People have, as Dr. Jackson mentioned, questions about summer and also the plan for the fall. So we're going to bounce around and just have a conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Our first question is from Courtney. And I think, Mayor, maybe we'll start with you on this one. Given just 2 short months until Dr. Jackson's departure, what's the district's and the city's plan for hiring the next CEO? More specifically, how will a nationwide search be executed to ensure we secure the best candidate to run the 3rd largest school district in the country? How will key stakeholders be included in the process in a meaningful and authentic way? And how do we ensure that schools will fully reopen in the fall with this change in leadership? So that was a mouthful.
Yes. So let me
pick it apart.
Let me take the search for the new CEO first, and then we can talk about the reopening conversation. First and foremost, again, I think to Dr. Jackson's credit, because she's a consummate professional, she gave us plenty of advance notice about what her intentions were. So right away, President Valle and I, along with members of my team, started talking about what this transition would look like. We've already secured a search firm, one that's got a lot of deep experience in exactly these kinds of searches. That process has begun. We will do a nationwide search. I'm very confident because of the incredible assets that CPS offers to a serious educational professional. We will have no difficulty finding the right next leader for the school. But as a practical matter, step by step, here's what we anticipate happening. And I'll also invite President Valle to participate in this, since he's really been running point on this from the board perspective. We've hired the search firm. They will help us source candidates. There'll be a flight of candidates that will go to the board and be evaluated by the board and other stakeholders, and then eventually that will be winnowed down, and then President Valle and I will interview a group of finalists, and then I will make a selection, and then that will be presented to the board. So that's the process in rough strokes. We hope to expedite this, but we want to make sure that we take the right amount of time to answer questions, to really also talk about the incredible assets that CPS offers for those candidates who may not be intimately familiar with CPS. And I look to the pool of candidates in the following way. Number one, obviously, anybody internally who is interested and believes that they can be that next leader, we invite them to apply. Because of the incredible strength of the CPS school system over many years, and particularly over Dr. Jackson's tenure, there are people who come from CPS who have gone elsewhere across the country to lead districts or be in leadership roles. We hope that they will also apply. And then folks who believe that they've got the bandwidth and the experience and the passion for our children, we want them to be part of the applicant pool as well. I'm excited about what the process will yield, but I'm confident that we are going to find a good, strong leader who understands education as the great equalizer and recognizes both the challenges that we have, but also the tremendous opportunities that this system and this district will provide to the next leader and the next leadership team. President Valle, do you want to jump in and add a little color to what I've described?
Well, I think you described it well. I just want to emphasize a couple of things. The entire board, we have a 7-member board. The entire board will be involved in this process. All board members will be involved with the group that's going to conduct interviews. So this is not something that will be done just by the president and the mayor alone. And I thank you for encouraging that broad participation. And then there will be means for public engagement.
Yes.
The details of that, Mayor, will be announced very soon. We're working on fine-tuning it now, and we will make that public very soon. But
and let me just add, if I will, and President Valle highlighted a point that I should have lifted up myself, which is there's going to be a lot of opportunities for CPS stakeholders to be engaged. We anticipate surveys, we anticipate focus groups, but we want to hear from you about the values and the issues that you believe the next CEO should take on. The values that you think are going to be important in the next leader, but also the range of issues that you're seeing from your perspective that you want to make sure are both part of the evaluation process for who the next leader should be. And I will just say the process that we're about to embark on, at least in my knowledge of CPS going back many years, is really unprecedented. There hasn't been another mayor in recent memory who's invited members of the CPS community into this process or had board participation in the way that we are going to have in this process. Normally, the mayor consults behind closed doors and then announces who the leader is. that's not the way that I want to do this, but it's also not the way that we should be doing this, given where we are. We've heard loud and clear from parents, you want a seat at the table, and we will create lots of opportunities for you to express to us what you see and what you'd like to see on a going forward basis. So I'm excited about the process. I think it's going to be very robust and fulsome, and we will get, I think, a very good feel for what our school community is thinking about this transition and who the next leader should be.
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited as well. Still sad,
Okay.
but excited about the engagement of so many voices in this process. Judy has this question. I think President Del Valle answered it, but I must ask Judy's question.
What's that?
Dr. Jackson, will you reconsider?
That the mayor is Judy, the mayor. I'm just joking. No, that's a nice question. No, I want people to know that I thought long and hard, and I'm firm on the decision. And I also believe, truly believe that we will pick. Well, I'm not going to be involved. I already said that, but that the mayor and the board and all the folks involved will select a leader, the right person for this district. And I know people think I'm just saying it, but I will be around. I'm from Chicago. I'm a Chicagoan. I've always been involved, and so I will still be involved. Supporting Chicago public schools, the youth in the city, and also supporting the mayor.
Well,
so
we're not going to let you go too far.
Not going to go too far, but Judy, a.k.a. Mayor Lightfoot. No, I'm just joking. Just joking.
Okay, well, we all had to try.
Okay.
This question, another question about the transition, I'll throw it to you, President Del Valle. This is from Juliet. I'm concerned about the departure of senior CPS leadership and fear the political climate will affect the potential to draw strong replacements. How do you recommend I go about making my voice heard in this process? And so we spoke to this a little bit, but maybe you can speak to the fear about the political climate and the impact on the process.
It's a fair question. And we should always be concerned about the political climate within which CPS has to operate.
Yes.
There will always be a political climate. But what I'm hoping as board president and what every board member wants to see is a coming together for the purpose of making sure that we bring in a new leader that is going to make sure that the progress that is being made will continue on track, and that we address some of the areas, many of the areas out there that the public and parents in particular want us to emphasize more. Dr. Jackson has set a really high bar, and so we are expecting someone to reach that bar really quickly. But because the task, this is a tall order, it is important that we all push in the same direction. And that some of our critics in the past just pause and say, let's engage in a process that's for the greater good, that's in the best interest, more important than anything else, of the students.
Absolutely.
And I think we're at that point now. In terms of the management of CPS during this transition period, it's been stated many times that Dr. Jackson has built a strong team. We do have a couple more people departing, top leaders, but under those individuals are deputies that are ready to step up and are strong leaders. And so that structure is that Dr. Jackson has built is built on such a solid foundation that I don't see it being shaken. I think that it will be able to tackle all the issues and all the tasks at hand in a very effective way.
And I should note that that structure that you created has been written up it's been written about. So yeah, that's a testament to the thought that's been put into the leadership structure at CPS.
Thank you.
Okay, so a couple of questions about summer programs. Evilia asked about extra opportunities and how many children will be served, and you kind of touched upon that already, Dr. Jackson. Geraldine is asking, is there going to be any kind of intervention for struggling students in reading, math, and writing? And why are there not after-school programs for Latino students such as art, science, reading, and math?
Yeah. Well, I'll take the first question and just make sure people are clear. Number one, we're going to have 18 programs across the district, and I highlighted some of those earlier. And the goal is to serve 90,000 students, and that's just, you know, based on planning, what we anticipate, you know, demand to be. But as I stated earlier, and I know this from working with Mayor Lightfoot, if the demand is greater than 90,000, we're going to figure out ways. And people should remember that the Park District will be open, and the libraries, and there will be a host of summer activities, summer youth activities, jobs, etc. But CPS will be have capacity for about 90,000 of our 350,000 students or so. As far as after-school programming, we do have after-school programming for all students, including Latino students. But what I think Geraldine is asking, number one, this year when we return to school, many schools did not offer after-school programming. That's something that will change in the fall, and we started our process of planning for that by giving schools additional discretionary dollars for out-of-school time. So people should expect to see a ramp up of summer programming, as I talked about earlier, but also a ramp up of out-of-school time programming in the fall. And it will be focused on intervention, where students may need extra support, but it will also be focused on enrichment, because I know a lot of parents, whether your students were on track or thrive during the remote learning environment, still want more opportunities for them to get actively engaged and get back into school. What I'm excited about is we've given the money directly to principals, because we know principals and local school councils best know their communities, and so they're going to create the type of programs that they want to have. But we did give them a list of students based on grades in the last test scores that we have, to say these are the students that you should be doing direct outreach to, speaking with families to make sure that they're actively involved. So I would say to Geraldine and others, if you have not been contacted or received anything from your local school, definitely reach out to the principal just to get a sense of when that information is going to be shared. But again, people will see an onslaught of programming, program offerings this summer as well as in the fall.
And if I can, just to add to that, you know, one of the lessons, obviously, that we have learned coming out of the pandemic is how important it is to make sure that our young people in particular are connected. The absence of in-person learning opportunities, the absence of extracurricular activities has really taken a toll. There's no sugarcoating that. So one of the reasons why we are going to be offering even more resources over the course of this summer is because of that. So I want to give a plug to our signature youth engagement program out of school time, what's called My Shy, My Future, which Dr. Madison leads, and maybe you'll give us a couple of nuggets of what we're planning. But we plan a robust set of programming offerings across the city for young people in particular, to make sure that they're filling that void and that need for, you know, arts and science and all sorts of other programming, so they can pursue their passions over the course of this summer and feel connected to other like-minded young people. Sybil, you
Sure.
jump in?
Dr. Jackson mentioned this, but parks are opening with in-person programs. Libraries are opening. Our U-Media sites will be open again, thank goodness. And then we have programs offered by community-based organizations all across the city. Just from the city alone, we have, I think, about 250,000 opportunities for young people to be engaged this summer. As was mentioned, we just know it's really important for young people to have opportunities to reconnect to peers, to reconnect to caring adults who are running these programs, and also just to reconnect to joy and passion and interest. And so we're really excited about that. myshyMyfuture.org is where you can search for programs. We're still building up that inventory of programs that you can look for, but I know that parents are thinking about what their kids are going to do this summer, and I know that kids are thinking about not being on a laptop to do those things. So we've also been really working hard with our city departments and agencies, as well as community-based organizations, to make sure that people have the support they need to provide safe in-person opportunities this summer. And we want to thank CDPH for being there to plan with all of our partners around how to do that this summer. We also have, I'll just put a little teaser out there, what we're calling a Kickback Series, that's particularly for the teenagers, that will take place outdoors. So we're thinking a lot about how do we use the outdoor space where we know a lot of parents are more comfortable with their kids kind of being with other kids. So just a lot of special, wonderful things happening this summer, all to support the holistic development of our young people here in the city.
And let me just also add, our summer jobs program is also taking applications now through June 11th. And there's going to be a lot of very interesting opportunities there as well, including one thing that I'm excited about is really expanding opportunities for our Green Corps. Young people are going to have an opportunity to get involved, be involved in nature, and also help support communities through green activities over the course of the summer. So lots of interesting things to do, and of course, After School Matters is back, and we'll also be providing opportunities for young people. So this should be our summer of youth, and lots of opportunities for young people in particular to connect.
I'd just like to add quickly that as a strong proponent of after-school programming, we also want to see after-school programming activities that engage parents, and they give parents an opportunity to participate directly at the schools, in some cases with their children, and in activities designed for parents as well. So in the future, I see expansion of after-school programming throughout the entire city.
And it's a good time to lift up Parent University as well, and all the ways that at our parent universities we have enrichment opportunities for parents.
And we've gotten a good response, and we hope we see that once they are no longer virtual. So more to come.
More to come. All right, so here's a question from Margot about the fall, Dr. Jackson. Will school be returning to its normal schedule? What precautions will be in place? If so, will the parents have the option to keep their kids remote for the upcoming school year? And will sports and other activities resume?
So I don't want to get ahead of any announcements that would need to obviously come from the governor, number one, regarding the emergency declaration related to schools. But I think given where we are with vaccinations and guidance from the CDC and our desire just to see our kids back in school, knowing that this last year has taken a toll on some of our students academically, we want a return to full daily instruction in our schools. We want to move away from the hybrid. And so that's what we're focused on, and that's what we're marching towards. I think that there is still an outstanding question about how parents opt in. I think school should be mandatory for all students in a brick and mortar building as it was pre-pandemic. But we also know that there are some students who have medical conditions where we have to take a closer look at that before it's mandatory for them. I think we learned a lot about how to administer a remote program, and so students who do have medical conditions and need a remote learning option, I think we'll be able to provide them with a high quality option. But I think the district has been clear, and the mayor has been clear, that our desire is to see our students back in school. And to be quite honest, that has been what we've heard from many parents. As far as what are we going to do to make sure that people are safe, I think it's important to note that we have demonstrated our ability to reopen schools safely. This reopening has gone well, and I think that that's important to say, because a lot of hard work from people that you don't see went into doing that. And I really want to lift up the staff at the school level, led by our principals, and of course bolstered by teachers and nutrition support staff, security, and so many other people. They've taken this seriously. And so the protocols that we have in place, the things that we know work, wearing a mask, temperature checks, health screeners, those things have been implemented with fidelity. And as a result, we've been able to contain things and make sure that kids can come back to school safely. We're going to ramp that up. And what I've said to some parents that have asked, well, are you going to be able to do this with more students coming? The answer is yes. And that's thanks to what we learned this year, but also the additional funds that we've received through the American Rescue Plan. There is no reason that we can't open schools in the fall. We have the know-how. We know a lot more about COVID-19, and we have the money to do it. So that's exactly what we intend to do.
Well, and if I can add, with your leadership, over $100 million was put into the schools over the course of this last year to make them safe. And as this expression goes, the proof is in the pudding. We have demonstrated over and over again that schools are safe. We learned the lessons from a lot of the other school systems in the city, notably the Archdiocese. We've taken learning from other school systems across the country and across the world, and the additional monies that have come in are really going to provide even more resources to make sure that we are mitigating and responding to any challenges. And last but not least, and importantly, now that vaccines look like they're going to be coming online for younger children, obviously with the permission of parents, that's even going to enhance our ability to demonstrate that the schools are safe. But we were able to do that even before vaccines were available to our young people. So I feel very comfortable about what the future lies, but it depends on the actions that we take now. We need people to get vaccinated. We need them to continue to follow the public health guidance. But based upon what we see as the trajectory going forward, we feel very comfortable that we're going to be in a position to open up the schoolhouse doors full time for our young people starting this fall.
All right. Here's a question from Jody about our diverse learners. Elementary-age children with IEPs are treated as second-class citizens by the public school system. The pandemic has made this even worse, and they have been completely left behind. What is CPS going to do to make sure teachers and administrators stop abdicating their responsibilities to the students who need them the most?
Yeah. Well, I think that that's a fair question. Obviously, a lot of emotion behind that question. And I will say that it has been a challenge educating students with disabilities during the pandemic. We've made no secret of that. The whole purpose of an IEP is to provide an individualized education plan. And it's hard to do that remotely when a lot of shifts were occurring. I do think that...
Well, Dr. Jackson, isn't that one of the reasons why we focused on those students as a priority to give an option to in-person learning?
Absolutely. And I do want to lift up the way our teachers were able to become more creative. It took us a while to get there, so I want to, acknowledge what's behind Jody's question. But I think our clinicians, our teachers figured out how to deliver services through a virtual model. But to your point, we know that in order to do this and do it well, we needed to get our students back, which is why we started with diverse learners. As we go into the summer and the upcoming school year, I didn't talk as much about the extended school year program, which is something we offer every year. That's something that's offered to all of our students with disabilities if they so choose to, especially coming after this year. And the school doors will be open to serve. And so any family that wants that additional support, that in-person option will be available to you this summer. And so I encourage you to speak with the case manager or your child's teacher at the local school to get signed up. What I didn't say earlier, and this goes for students with disabilities as well as every student, any student that received a failing grade in English language arts or math, science, any core area, those are the students that we're going to be doing direct outreach to and encouraging them to come to Summer Bridge and do after-school programming. And so because of the additional infusion of cash that we're getting, people, I even get excited. I think as a principal, we've never had this kind of money and the kind of resources that schools will have. And so parents will see and feel something different as a result, and principals will feel supported in that they have more resources to do this work.
All right.
Could I add?
Yes, please, President.
Because I've worked with the population in my other roles, and no parent should feel that their child is treated as a second-class citizen.
Yeah.
within our system.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to feel that way.
Right.
But we made tremendous progress in addressing the needs of diverse learners. And yes, in prior years, the system has struggled. A lot of reasons for that. But we made progress. The pandemic did get in the way. But as Dr. Jackson said, we wanted our diverse learners back first. And we worked very hard to accomplish that. Now that they're back, we want to make sure that we not only continue to make progress, but that we accelerate that process and use the resources, and you'll see it in our next budget, where there will be a significant increase for diverse learners in the budget. And so the commitment is there. But I hope that the day comes when Alex and others will not feel like diverse learners are being treated as second-class
That's
citizens.
a good point.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's unacceptable. All right, here's a question from Alex that's been touched upon a little bit, but let's get right to it. What is the status of negotiations with CTU about 5-day in-person school this fall? How will parents be periodically updated? And when do you expect a final answer? There is significant fear that CTU will derail CPS's plans for 5-day in-person school if given the chance. So a little bit of anxiety around how this is going to go and whether people can kind of be sure or, have a predictable start to the school year in the fall.
So why don't I start, and then I'll invite Dr. Jackson into the discussion. Well, first of all, we fought very hard to make sure that in-person learning was an option for all of our students, and we succeeded. We hope to build on that success, and we won't be starting with a blank piece of paper when it comes to the fall. We now know how to do this and how to do this in a way that is safe for the entire school community. Discussions with the CTU have already begun for the fall. The current agreement lasts through August, but it's certainly my expectation that we will reach a new deal with the CTU well in advance of the start of the school year so the parents can plan. It's not to anyone's benefit for these discussions to be filled with rancor, to be filled with a lot of noise, accusations. I want a professional and productive process that moves us forward, but first and foremost, focuses on our young people, our students. I've told the team at CPS and the folks that are at the bargaining table throughout this process, both when we went through pre-K through 8 and then from high school, every single day that we're at that table, we have to remember kids first. If we keep that front and center, then we're going to get to the place that we need to. But the other thing I would say is this. Over the course of this school year, I've been very excited and pleased about the outpouring of parent activism around the reopening, and really making sure that you all had a voice in what was happening within CPS. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. That has made an enormous difference. We want to make sure that we're doing a better job of engaging with you. We will do a better job of keeping you updated along with the progress, but don't stand down. We need your voices. We need you to be part of the process and telling us what is necessary for us to know in partnership with you to create the best, most robust, nurturing, and safe learning environment for your children. So please continue your advocacy and outreach to us. It's made an enormous difference. We carry your voices into the bargaining room every single time that we're meeting with CTU. So please keep it coming. Dr. Jackson?
Just picking up on that point around parent voice, I think parents have made it clear that they want their kids back in school full time. I know I'm a parent. I think they should be back in school full time in the fall. And so we have made clear to our partners at CTU that that's the goal. And because I know we're on the time frame, one of the things that I've directed our negotiations team to do is to figure out what are the concerns. We know that we have a blueprint with the elementary reopening agreement and the high school reopening agreement. There may be a few things that we need to discuss because we're bringing everybody back. But what we cannot allow for is what happened last year, which is this long, drawn-out discussion. We need to know what the major concerns are right away. And to Andrew's point, share that with, or the previous person's point, share that information with parents as we've done in the past. You may recall we do the end of the week newsletter. If you're not signed up for the CPS end of the week newsletter, I would encourage you to go to our website, and if you scroll all the way down at the bottom, put in your contact information, and you will receive regular updates from the district. But in those updates, with regard to negotiations or talks with CTU, we try to make clear these are the things that we have been discussing. Here's where CTU is, here's where the district is. And so any parent that isn't currently receiving those updates, I would encourage you to sign up. But again, I think the goal is 5 days, every day, all day instruction in the fall.
A return to normal.
Yeah.
I announced, along with the governor this week, that our hope is that our economy will fully reopen by 4th of July. If things continue on the trajectory that they are, we will reach that goal. And if that happens, we have to assume and move towards a return to normal. You know, our lives have been irreparably changed in many ways from this pandemic, but we've got to move forward. The light that we saw not that long ago as a pinprick at the end of this long, dark tunnel is much brighter, much larger, and we got to keep moving forward. And a big part of that has to be getting our kids back to in-person learning full time.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, here's a question. We're coming close to the end of our time. I'm going to hop to Lindsay's question. How do we make Chicago, and schools in particular, safe for all students? What are the bold ideas to radically reduce violence, especially from guns?
That's a great question. And obviously, particularly the gun piece is much bigger than what's happening within CPS. I think we have to challenge ourselves, but also challenge the federal government to step up and do what is necessary to help end this surge of illegal guns into the city of Chicago. Let me give you a couple of data points around that. Every single year for the last 5+ years, the Chicago Police Department takes more crime guns. And what I mean by that is guns that were sold and within 3 years end up on the streets associated with some kind of crime. Chicago Police Department takes more crime guns off the streets every year than New York or LA combined. Last year, it was 12,000. We're on a trajectory this year to even exceed that number. That doesn't make sense. But it's happening because states proximate to us, notably Indiana, have much more lax gun laws. We're paying for that on the streets of Chicago. So we have to do more, and we must push the federal government to step up. Common sense gun regulation doesn't mean taking away legitimate people's guns. Doesn't mean that we're going to stop people from being able to protect themselves, stop people from going and hunting. But think about this. We have a list, a no-fly list in this country, which means if you are deemed to be a threat, you can't get on a plane. But those people can possess firearms. Does that make sense? Of course it doesn't. So we have got to do more to press the federal government because they are uniquely qualified across jurisdictions to enact sensible gun regulation to keep us safe. We also have to talk to our children more about the choices that they are making. We're seeing an alarming number of young people believe that they need to carry a gun for their own personal safety. And we've just got to unpack that and have real conversations with them about the dangers of possessing illegal guns and how one rash decision can completely change the trajectory of their lives. And we've got to do more about that. But also, we have a responsibility as a government, but also as a city, to make sure that we are doing more to support young people across our city so they don't feel like their only options are to mind somebody's corner spot, going to jail, or an early death. And we've got to imbue our young people with hope and optimism and provide them with real opportunities so that they see the trajectory of their lives that is different than maybe their current circumstances. They've got to be able to see and live out their God-given potential because we as a city have created a village of support around them. That, to me, looking at the root causes of the violence, why it is that so many of our young people are involved, either as victims or perpetrators, and drilling down and making sure that we provide better options and better choices from them and start talking about that in a real way to those young people at the earliest possible age. That is what we are about. That is what we've been doing, and we will continue to provide those kinds of supports. But looking holistically at the root causes of violence is something that we've been doing from day one of this administration, and we must continue to do if we're going to make progress and really make our neighborhoods and our schools and our children safe.
Can I lift, I know we have time for just one more question, but I want to lift up one important program that you launched, which is the Choose to Change program. And I don't know that people oftentimes know how much we have invested in this. So a little bit about the Choose to Change program, which we started the first year. Of course, it was put on hold last year because of the pandemic, or it was done virtually. But this program with 400 youth, at-risk youth, or what we call them opportunity youth, they were given therapy, support, mentorship, and more importantly, jobs. And so that's something that we're going to be doing again this summer. I'm sure we'll be making a big announcement around that. But what we saw was tremendous progress in that group, and that these are students that in some way, shape, or form are just as involved or may have been victims themselves. And we saw almost no recidivism as a result of that. And so it's more programs like that, expanding the number of youth that we're touching. And so that was one of your signature programs the first year. And as we go back to in-person opportunities this summer, we're definitely going to be launching that and looking to expand the number of youth that are served in that program. So more to come on that. I don't want to get ahead of an announcement, but that was a really important question, and I didn't want to miss an opportunity to talk about what you've been doing around that.
No, thank you for adding that. I mean, what we have to do again, is look across the various resources that we have in city government, the resources that exist in the community, and make sure that we're breaking out of those silos, partnering together in a data-driven and equity-focused way to be that village for our young people.
All right. Well, Kate has the final question, and I invite the mayor and the president to respond. Here it is. Does Mayor Lightfoot plan to fulfill her campaign promise and implement an elected school board?
Well, I've been very clear about this. As we think about a new governance structure for CPS, there's some core values that I believe that we have to have. And I have not seen a proposal by anyone else that really meets this. So that's what we're negotiating and pushing on in Springfield. Here are some of the core values that I think have to be part of it. Number one, a pathway for ordinary parents to be part of the process, to have an actual seat at the table. Why is that important? For the obvious reason. Who better to be able to articulate the needs of students than parents themselves? I believe that should come up through the LSC process, that you have spent some time with skin in the game, supporting schools at the local level, and before you can sit on the board. So that's really, to me, a core value. We also need to make sure that we're not disenfranchising our undocumented residents. I can't live with a governance structure that disenfranchises people who have every right to have a seat at the table for their kids. And in Chicago, that means that we've got to provide a room at that table for immigrant and refugees, regardless of citizenship status, another core value. I think equally important is making sure that we have controls around the influence of money in elections. So when we talk about an elected school board, it sounds great, but the devil's in the details. If we look to some fully elected boards that have school systems that are the size of Chicago, for example, Los Angeles, one seat costs $1 million. $1 million for one race. That makes no sense. So we've got to have some structure and controls that parents, undocumented residents, and people who just want to do the right thing and commit themselves to public service truly have a chance to influence the direction of CPS by having a seat at the board, on the board. More to say about that, but those are the core values that I am pushing, that I'm articulating. And another thing that parents should know, every single year, the city of Chicago provides literally hundreds of millions of dollars in support to CPS. So we've got to make sure that if we're going to have, we have to have a seat at the table so those resources continue to flow. But right now, the proposal in Springfield is to take away our seat at that table as a city government, but not provide any financial support to CPS. Of course, that doesn't make sense. So we'll have more to say about that, but I feel very strongly that as we move to a new governance structure, we've got to make sure that first and foremost, we're giving parents and other important stakeholders a seat at that table and really providing the way for that to happen by putting guardrails around the election process itself.
President Del Valle, I know you have some thoughts as well.
Well, a little bit of history.
Yeah.
And I know we're wrapping up, but as a freshman legislator, I participated in the drafting of the 1988 school reform legislation that created local school councils.
That's right.
And one of the things that I insisted on was that undocumented and permanent residents, documented permanent residents, be able to participate in local school council elections and also serve on local school councils. And that has been the case since 1988. And now the bill that has been moving through Springfield doesn't allow that type of participation. And so it's excluding a significant segment of the school population. And so it's somewhat hypocritical, if I may say so, of the sponsors to talk about how this legislation that's moving is going to ensure parent participation, while at the same time not allowing for a sizable segment of the parent population, plus the community.
That's right.
Because it's not just the parents, it's the people who live within the boundaries of those schools, who are undocumented, who have been able to vote in local school council elections. And these are individuals who own property, they pay property taxes, they have their children in the school, they care deeply about what happens in the schools, they're engaged with the schools in parent activities and other kinds of activities, they've engaged with community organizations, and yet they will not be able to participate.
Makes no
and
sense.
So let's call it what it is. And as the mayor said, we have to negotiate and come up with legislation that is going to ensure the participation of all parents.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right. I think that's the note we're going to end on. I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure for me to be here with three history makers and have this conversation. And we look forward to many more forums like this where we can just have a conversation and answer questions coming from our CPS school community. I want to thank President Del Valle, Dr. Jackson, Mayor Lightfoot for spending this time. And I know that this will be available after tonight on a couple of places on CPS and the mayor's channels for those who want to share it, or view it later. So thank you, and we hope you have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
All right.